12 years. That's how long I had devoted to MarrowTech, a rising AI diagnostics firm based in Chicago, Illinois. 12 years of missed holidays, Sunday night pitch decks, and sprint cycles that blurred one quarter into the next. So when the subject line hit my inbox, organizational alignment, please confirm meeting, my heart didn't skip a beat. It slowed, just enough for my gut to whisper, this is it. The meeting was set for 8 a.m. sharp. It was a Wednesday in March, only 3 days before our company's major product. Unveiling one I had spent nearly a year building, designing, and rehearsing. I walked into the 17th floor conference room exactly on time. The air smelled like wood polish and corporate insincerity. Cynthia from HR sat on the left, her forced smile already tiring her jaw. Across the table sat Jackson Tate, the freshly minted CEO who had taken over just 7 weeks earlier. No roots in the company, no history with its people, just polished jargon and a strategy deck full of agility and optimization. "Nina, thanks for joining us," Jackson said, folding his hands as though he were about to offer me a raise instead of a farewell. I nodded once, calmly. "Of course." Cynthia cleared her throat. "We'll get right to it. As part of MarrowTech's structural reorganization, your position as Director of Brand Architecture is being eliminated." Eliminated. Like a typo. Jackson chimed in with a nod. "You've been an asset, Nina, but we're shifting toward a leaner leadership model." I stared at the 3 printed pages Cynthia slid across the table. 12 years boiled down to generic bullet points and a severance check that wouldn't even cover half a year's rent in downtown Chicago. I could have argued. I could have made a scene, but I didn't, because I already knew. 3 weeks earlier, I had come back to the office late, after realizing I'd left my badge in the design studio. That's when I spotted Jackson's laptop open on the corner desk. He had left in a rush. The screen still glowed with an email, subject remove Nina from launch deck. Alternate confirmed, dated 4 weeks before today. That was all I needed. From that night on, I'd started preparing. Quietly, strategically. Now in that room, I looked Jackson straight in the eyes. I understand. These decisions are never easy. They blinked, almost surprised, as if they were expecting tears, or fury, or fear. But I had already shifted from reaction to resolution, and I wasn't done yet. Instead, I signed the papers, thanked them for their time, and stood to leave. "Oh, one more thing," Cynthia added almost as an afterthought. "Per policy, your final day will be Friday." She gave a tight smile. "You won't need to attend the launch party." I nearly laughed. Won't need to attend? I had built that launch from scratch, every step of it. I wrote the concept, brief designed. The invitations, curated the guest list, even handpicked the venue in River North. And now, 3 days before they were uninviting me from my own event, I nodded, understood. But I had absolutely no intention of missing it. Back at my apartment that evening, I poured a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and clicked open the file I'd been refining ever since I saw that email on Jackson's screen 3 weeks earlier. It wasn't just a resignation letter or a complaint. It was a dossier, a meticulously ordered timeline of every major campaign product concept and branding milestone I had authored since 2011. Each entry came with names, timestamps, image files, client approval chains, Slack transcripts. And at the very bottom of the document, a U.S. copyright certificate. Because nearly a year ago, when the launch branding was still nothing more than sketchy notes on a whiteboard, I pitched something bold, a whole new brand identity, tagline, and visual system. The leadership team loved it, at least until Jackson took over and stopped inviting me to creative reviews. What they didn't know was that I had filed a copyright registration under my own name, on my personal time, using my own licensed software. Legally clean, traceable. I renamed the file Launch Gift ninaread.pdf and attached it to a scheduled email. Recipient Jackson Tate. Send time 9:30 p.m. Friday night, exactly 20 minutes after his planned toast at the launch. I hit schedule. Let them enjoy their champagne, their applause, their pretty little PR package. I wasn't just walking out. I was making sure they'd never forget why the room was decorated the way it was or whose vision made it possible. By Thursday morning, the office was buzzing. Floral deliveries arrived in waves, catering walked through logistics, interns stuffed canvas tote bags with branded notepads and glossy brochures. Everyone was running around in anticipation. No one looked twice at me. That's the thing about being quietly erased. They forget you still exist. I still had full dashboard access, still monitored timelines. No one had revoked a thing. And Jackson, he hadn't said a word since the meeting. He was too busy practicing his speech and posing for the trade press, flanked by interns with ring lights and egos to match. Every time I passed the glass-walled conference rooms where the new execs huddled, I saw my work, my branding, my language, my entire vision projected across 90-inch screens, like it had descended from heaven fully formed. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was calculating. Patient. That Thursday afternoon, I received an email from the external event coordinator confirming the final guest list and press rundown. Somehow, I was still copied on it. Sloppy. I scrolled through hundreds of names, industry veterans, tech media, influencer partnerships. But one name stopped me. Leon Bain, founder of Bain & Ford Capital, the largest firm backing MarrowTech's Series C round. Leon wasn't just money. He was legacy. And he hated surprises, especially of the legal kind. We'd met twice before at biotech summits. The second time he'd pulled me aside after a panel to say, "You've got a mind that doesn't just sell products. You sell belief." That's rare. Now, I was about to remind him why. That night, I reviewed the final schedule. Jackson was set to give his toast at 9:10 p.m., followed by the grand reveal of our rebrand, a full-screen wraparound showcase of the identity I had developed. And at 9:30 p.m., everything would change. The document I had prepared, now renamed Launch Gift Nina Reed PDF, wasn't just a timeline. It was a forensic-level dossier, Slack transcripts, creative drafts, timestamped design files, email chains confirming concept approvals. It tracked every piece of the new branding to work I completed before Jackson even joined MarrowTech. The final page. My copyright registration dated and confirmed under my personal name. It also included a quote from a Slack thread where Jackson dismissed me as a creative we can afford to lose. The best part, the scheduled email wasn't going only to him. At 9:30 p.m., the file would be sent to Jackson Tate, MarrowTech's board of directors, Leon Bain, 3 tech journalists from Chicago, Innovator Bio Next Weekly, and Venture Deep, and my attorney Samantha Cho, who had prepared a cease and desist letter attached and ready. If stories like this move, you stories of quiet strength, earned respect, and long overdue recognition, go ahead and subscribe. The next chapter is one you won't want to miss. I had even scheduled a LinkedIn post to go live at 9:35 p.m., outlining my 12-year journey at MarrowTech and my choice to protect what I had built respectfully, legally, and publicly. Friday morning arrived. I wore a black satin blouse with a tailored graphite gray suit. Sharp understated, professional. My access badge still worked. No one questioned me as I walked into the grand lobby of the Magnolia Ballroom at the Thompson Hotel. I blended in easily. Just another executive with a champagne flute. Servers floated past with truffle canapes. Guests posed for photos in front of branded banners I had designed. It felt surreal, like watching your own legacy dressed up in someone else's name. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. At exactly 9:09 p.m., Jackson Tate stepped onto the stage like he was about to accept a Nobel Prize. He stood tall under the spotlight, champagne glass in hand, wearing the smug smile of a man who truly believed he had built his empire from scratch. "Everything you see here," he began, voice booming, "is thanks to our incredible team. Every sleepless night, every innovation, every ounce of creativity." Then he smirked. "Well, except for the dead weight we let go along the way." A ripple of uneasy laughter rolled through the room. A few eyes darted toward me. Some guests raised their glasses in forced solidarity. Others just shifted awkwardly in their heels. I walked slowly to the stage, and handed Jackson a thin white envelope. He blinked. "What's this?" I leaned in just enough for the nearby microphones to catch my voice. "Your surprise launch gift." Then I turned and walked straight out of the ballroom, leaving the countdown ticking behind me. At 9:30 p.m. it began. Phones buzzed, emails landed, screens lit up. One journalist posted a tweet with the copyright certificate screenshot and the caption, "Oof." This just got awkward. By 9:32 p.m., Leon Bain was already on the phone. 10 minutes after that, the atmosphere inside the ballroom had shifted. Dramatically. The music still played, waiters still floated past with drinks, but the smiles had turned tight. The side conversations turned into frantic whispers. And Jackson? He was nowhere in sight. My email had detonated like a silent missile, respectful in tone, bulletproof in legality, devastating in consequence. I didn't look back. I walked calmly down the marble steps of the Thompson Hotel, slipped into the black car waiting at the curb. The driver nodded once. Samantha had sent him. As we pulled away, my phone lit up. 10:02 p.m. Samantha. Everything's moving. Bain is livid. The board's calling an emergency session. Beautiful timing. I gazed out at the lights of Chicago passing by, and my thoughts drifted not to revenge, but to the beginning. Back when MarrowTech wasn't even called that. Back when it was a 5-person team in a shared loft that smelled like burnt coffee and impossible dreams. I remembered Jonathan Miles, our late founder. He believed in building things right. He credited every contributor. He once told me, "The work is sacred. So are the people who do it." He died 4 years ago. And after that, the soul of the company started to fade. Then Jackson arrived. All teeth-tailored suits and TED Talk nonsense. The board thought he was the future. They forgot who built the foundation. The board thought Jackson was the future. I was just a reminder of the past. A legacy they assumed would go quietly. They never expected the past to fight back. 10:11 p.m. Miguel. What did you do? Jackson just stormed off stage. PR is melting down. Investors are furious. Miguel had always been steady, one of the few in marketing who didn't care about titles or credit. Just good work. I hadn't told him everything, but I'd warned him something was coming. 10:14 p.m. LinkedIn. Notification: your post has received 258 reactions and 987 comments in the last 44 minutes. I opened it. The responses were pouring in. This is why we document everything. Well done, Nina. 12 years of brilliance ignored. You deserved better. This is the kind of quiet power we all need to learn from. The validation hit differently. After years of being told to step back, blend in, and let leadership speak, I was finally being seen, not for the office politics I avoided, but for the work I had quietly carried for over a decade. Back at the hotel, the fallout was escalating. Samantha forwarded me an audio recording from a contact inside the boardroom. One of the assistants had accidentally left their phone recording on the table. The quality was grainy, the conversation crystal clear. Board member, did no one verify who owned the launch branding legal counsel? We were told everything was created internally. Leon Bain, you're launching a product using copyrighted material you don't legally own. And you expect us to keep funding this circus, Jackson. We can contain this. She doesn't want to fight. Then came Samantha's voice, razor sharp and cold as steel. Samantha recorded, actually, she does. If the branding isn't retracted and rollout halted by Monday, we file an injunction. By 11:00 p.m., MarrowTech's legal counsel had already reached out to Samantha, directly asking for a conversation. But it was far too late for conversations. The damage had already become a textbook case in corporate arrogance. By 7:45 a.m., Friday, the headlines were everywhere. CEO faces, IP scandal after launch. Goes off script, Chicago business. Tribune, MarrowTech in branding crisis as former exec files copyright claim. Tech insider startup fires. Leader launch crumbles under legal firestorm. Venture current. Their stock dropped 6% before the market even opened. My inbox exploded. Recruiters, journalists, startups, former colleagues I hadn't spoken to in years. But one message stood out. A short note from Jonathan Miles's widow, Caroline. He would have been proud of you. He would have been proud of you. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding my phone like it weighed 100 pounds. That single sentence from Caroline Miles, widow of our late founder, was the one thing that finally broke through my armor. Not during the dismissal, not during the walkout, not even when I handed Jackson that envelope, but now. Because beneath all the filings and press statements, behind the strategy and restraint, there was something far more personal. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. By Monday morning, MarrowTech was scrambling. The launch campaign, once slated to lead every biotech headline, was dead in the water. Their homepage quietly reverted to the older branding. The new tagline colors and identity scrubbed from existence. Social media went silent except for vague apologies about unexpected system complications. Meanwhile, press inquiries piled up faster than the PR team could breathe. At 9:12 a.m., an email hit my inbox from an unfamiliar name, Derek Lomax, the board-appointed crisis manager. Dear Ms. Reed, we respectfully request a meeting to discuss options for resolution, including potential licensing or settlement of the disputed branding materials. Please let us know your availability this week. Regards, Derek Lomax, Interim Vice President Strategy, MarrowTech. I forwarded the message to Samantha. She replied within 2 minutes. Let them sweat. We'll respond tomorrow. You've got bigger things today. She was right. At 10 a.m., I walked into the riverfront offices of VeroCore Technologies, a rising AI and biotech hybrid based in Chicago's West Loop. A week earlier, they'd quietly reached out not because of the scandal, but because they knew exactly who had shaped MarrowTech's most iconic campaigns. They weren't offering a temporary gig. They were offering a leadership seat. Vice President of Brand Strategy and Innovation. Full creative autonomy. Equity. And a team I could build from the ground up. But the real reason I said yes. Aisha Rahman, their CEO. Years ago, she'd been pushed out of a major healthcare firm for being too bold. She understood what it meant to lead and still be treated like a threat. She greeted me with no pleasantries. Just a warm handshake and a sentence I won't forget. You're brilliant. Let's make sure you get to keep being brilliant. For the first time in years, I wasn't just proving my worth. I was shaping what it meant. Later that afternoon, Samantha and I finalized the offer to send MarrowTech. They had 2 choices. 1, pull the branding, entirely issue a public apology, and pay damages. 2, license the materials under my name for a significant fee with public attribution. We both knew Jackson Tate's ego would choke on those last 2 words, public attribution, which is exactly why they were non-negotiable. By Tuesday morning, MarrowTech's board convened another emergency session. An insider leaked parts of the meeting to Tech Insider. By noon, their headline was everywhere. CEO Jackson Tate failed to vet IP ownership prior to launch sources. Say the article didn't name me directly, but it didn't need to. Everyone already knew. The piece cited multiple sources confirming that Jackson had bypassed standard legal review on the company's new branding. The fallout from the IP dispute now threatened MarrowTech's upcoming funding round. Shareholders were, in their words, deeply concerned. 10:43 a.m. Miguel Jackson just got pulled from today's strategy call. Board is furious. Rumor is he's being reassigned. 10:55 a.m. LinkedIn DM from Leon Bain. Let me know when you're ready to talk. I think you've earned more than a new title. I didn't reply. Not yet. I was still watching the fallout unfold. By Wednesday, MarrowTech released a formal statement on their press site and social media feeds. Buried near the end was a single, careful line. We acknowledge oversight in the development and attribution of certain creative materials associated with the recent product launch. We are currently working toward a resolution with Ms. Nina Reed and her legal team. It wasn't an apology, but it was a beginning. That afternoon, Aisha and I finalized my contract with VeroCore Technologies. When the HR director asked if I wanted to post a formal hiring announcement that day, I smiled. Let's wait until Friday, because Friday marked exactly 1 week since Jackson raised his glass and called me dead weight. And I still had one last surprise waiting. Friday morning arrived clear and brisk sunlight spilling over the skyline. I stepped into VeroCore's downtown headquarters my first full day as Vice President of Brand Strategy and Innovation. The energy inside was electric. Teams were already scribbling new prototypes on whiteboards. Marketers were planning spring campaigns. Product designers debated interface tweaks across a row of screens. It was everything MarrowTech wasn't. No bottlenecks. No hierarchy fear. Just clarity and momentum. I set my bag down in my new office, larger than my old one, but more functional than flashy, and opened my laptop. At 9:00 a.m., sharp, our carefully crafted announcement post went live across LinkedIn and tech news outlets. VeroCore Technologies welcomes Nina Reed as VP of Brand Strategy and Innovation. The post was simple but powerful. It highlighted my 12-year track record at MarrowTech, credited me with leading their most successful branding campaigns, and introduced a new Chapter 1 built on collaboration, integrity, and vision. Transparency, collaboration, and visionary work. The final line of the announcement read, "Because innovation deserves not just recognition, but protection." Within 30 minutes, it was trending. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments from past colleagues, mentors, even competitors. A few of my old creative rivals messaged privately just to say, "You nailed it." 9:34 a.m., Samantha. Their general counsel just called. They're accepting the licensing agreement, including public attribution. Also, Jackson stepped down this morning. Interim CEO Richard Donovan. I leaned back in my chair and let it all settle in. It had taken 7 days. 7 days to unravel 12 years of being quietly underestimated. 7 days to take back ownership of what I had built. 7 days for a company that once called me expendable to admit formally on paper that they couldn't move forward without my work. By mid-morning, tech media outlets had picked up VeroCore's announcement. One headline from TechScoop actually made me laugh. From deadweight to director Nina Reed's launch week power play, I sent the link to Miguel. His reply came seconds later. Officially turned in my resignation today. I start at VeroCore on Monday. You were right. They never saw it coming. He wasn't the only one. 2 more former MarrowTech teammates had reached out that week asking if VeroCore had room for them. We did. And I had already started laying the groundwork for a long overdue project, one I dreamed of building for years, but never had the leadership backing to pursue. Now the very people who had been sidelined and silenced were finally getting the chance to build something new. With me, not under me. At 12:15 p.m., a new email came in from Richard Donovan, MarrowTech's interim CEO. It was formal, it was dignified, and most importantly, it was respectful. Dear Ms. Reed, thank you for engaging with us throughout this challenging period. On behalf of the board, I extend our apologies for how your contributions were handled. We have agreed to your licensing terms and will issue public acknowledgement this afternoon. We are also initiating internal reviews to ensure this does not happen again. We hope this resolution offers closure and that your next chapter brings you the recognition you've always deserved. Attached was a draft of their public statement. It acknowledged me by name. It recognized that I had developed the creative direction before my dismissal, that the company failed to credit my contributions and was now licensing my work. It was everything I had asked for. Not for applause, for truth. At 3:00 p.m., the statement went live. Investors responded well. MarrowTech stock began to stabilize. But the internet had already chosen its hero. And it wasn't the man who toasted to letting go of dead weight. That evening, Aisha stopped by my office with 2 glasses and a bottle of champagne. No grand speech, just a soft smile and a quiet toast. To justice served, she said, pouring, I raised my glass. And to starting over, stronger. As the sun dipped beyond the Chicago skyline and our glasses clinked, I felt something shift deep inside me. This wasn't just a personal win. It was a cultural one. A shift in how women in leadership are perceived, in how intellectual labor is finally respected, and in how silence, when chosen intentionally, can become the most powerful voice in the room. And still, I wasn't done. Because of victory. That's just a moment. What you do after is what gives it weight. 1 year later, I stood backstage at the National Women in Tech Leadership Summit, straightening the microphone pinned to my lapel. The host's voice echoed through the packed auditorium. Please welcome our keynote speaker, industry trailblazer brand strategist, and a voice for integrity and innovation, Nina Reed. The applause rolled in like a wave, not loud and flashy, but warm, familiar, earned. I stepped into the light past the curtain and looked out over a sea of faces. Executives, founders, students, engineers. Some I recognized, others I didn't. But many of them knew me and, more importantly, knew the story. A story that had become both a cautionary tale in boardrooms and a rallying cry in break rooms. A year ago today, I was packing a cardboard box. Not with regret, but with memories. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. I walked them through the truth. Not the headlines, not the company's polished press releases, the real story. How innovation is often taken for granted. How loyalty is celebrated until it becomes inconvenient. And how people like me, like so many of them, are told to stay quiet while others collect the credit. I was called dead weight. And I said nothing. I let the room breathe. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I knew my actions would speak louder than anger ever could. Silence followed. The respectful kind. This isn't just a story about copyright or contracts. It's about ownership of your work, your worth, your voice. After the talk, dozens of women approached me. One whispered, "I started documenting everything after reading your story." Another said, "I finally got credit for the product I built." Because I stood up. Because you did. They weren't fangirling. They were awakening. And that more than any title was the real legacy. They were awakening, and that meant more than any headline ever could. The following week, I returned to VeraCore for our quarterly strategy session. Around the table with me sat Miguel and 3 other former MarrowTech teammates, people who once built quietly in the shadows and were finally leading in the light. We were shaping a new campaign, bold, collaborative, entirely original. No politics, no posturing, no one pretending to have all the answers. We built together, the way it was always supposed to be. That afternoon, the front desk paged me. A package had arrived, no return address, just my name on the front, handwritten in careful, elegant script. Inside was a single note on heavyweight stationery. "Congratulations on your success. The board speaks of you with respect now. They should have from the beginning. I've resigned. You were right. It was never just business." R.D. Richard Donovan, the interim CEO who had replaced Jackson Tate, a man who had led not with ego, but with empathy. Now that MarrowTech had stabilized under new leadership, he was stepping down. Their recovery had been steady, if slow. They had licensed the branding package. They had credited me in investor briefings, press kits, and board reports. And most recently, they had invited me to speak at their annual retreat. I declined, not because I was angry, but because I no longer needed to look back. Later that month, Aisha called me into her office. She handed me a crisp single sheet of paper and smiled. The board approved it unanimously. Effective immediately, you're our new Chief Brand and Innovation Officer. I blinked, speechless. She stood and added, "You don't just build campaigns, Nina. You build belief in people and purpose, in what's possible." I didn't cry. I didn't jump for joy. I just breathed. Because for the first time in my career, I wasn't chasing validation. I was living in it. The next morning, a new brushed metal nameplate appeared outside my office door. I paused as I arrived, running my fingertips lightly over the engraved letters. Nina Reed, Chief Brand and Innovation Officer. 12 years after being labeled expendable, I wasn't in the margins anymore. I was exactly where I belonged, on the record, in the light, and fully undeniably seen. CBIO, 12 years of being dismissed, sidelined, underestimated. And now my name was exactly where it belonged. Not in the footnotes of a pitch deck, not buried in metadata or forgotten email threads, not hidden behind someone else's title or applause, but on the door, on the document, on the record, where everyone could see it, where no one could erase it, where it would stay. I stood there a moment longer, hand resting on the edge of the frame. The hallway outside my office buzzed softly with morning energy design leads, sharing ideas, data teams syncing on timelines, marketing, coordinating rollout strategies. But in that quiet second, I felt it. The full weight of every late night I was told to just be a team player, every meeting where my name was left off the slide, every pitch where my ideas made it through but I didn't, and the weight of every step I'd taken since. Deliberate, legal, relentless, not to prove something, but to reclaim it. Because value isn't what others see in you. It's what you build when no one's looking. It's what you protect when everyone doubts. And it's what you own when the moment finally arrives. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. My new team had already begun assembling in the conference room down the hall, Miguel, Elise, Jordan, and Ava. Each of them had been overlooked at some point. Each of them had stayed quiet longer than they should have had to. But now, they weren't building under someone else's shadow. They were building with me. That afternoon, we presented the first concept pitch for VeroCore's new global campaign, a project I dreamed of for 5 years, but never had the power to greenlight. Now, I did. And more than that, I had the people, the trust, the freedom. The launch was still months away, but the foundation was being laid in the open with credit given where it was earned, not after the fact, not begrudgingly, but proudly. And as I walked past the wall of glass offices that framed the open design floor, I caught my reflection, confident, focused, fully present, no longer quiet, no longer invisible, no longer waiting for permission. Nina Reed, Chief Brand and Innovation Officer. 12 years of being underestimated led here. And this time, I wasn't just in the room. I was leading it.